All right, this is worksheet 10.3, day 2. We're going to walk you through the whole process on these problems. So the first step we always want to do is take this number here that's next to the p squared plus 12. We just want to get rid of it. So however you do that to both sides. So in this case, we're adding 13 to both sides, and that's going to give us p squared plus 12p equals 13. Okay. Now that puts it in a spot where we were at our worksheet for numbers 1 through 4 yesterday, because they were asking you to put the number that would complete the square in these blanks here. So we're going to take half of 12, which is 6. 6 times 6 is 36, and we're going to add that to both sides. Okay. Now, what that does then is that takes us then to problems 5 through 8 yesterday, because now by putting that 36 here, this is a perfect square. So this could be factored into p plus 6 times p plus 6, or p plus 6 squared. 6 times 6 is 36. 6 plus 6 is 12. We force that to happen by doing that half of the middle squared technique. Okay. On the other side, 13 plus 36 is 49. And now we can take the square root of both sides. P plus 6 equals positive or negative 7. We can subtract that 6 right there. So we get negative 6 plus or minus 7. So P equals negative 6 plus 7, which is 1, or negative 6 minus 7, which is negative 13. Okay. So again, step 1, let's get rid of that number that's right next to it. Step 2, take half the middle and squared, add that to both sides. Step 3, go ahead and factor that then. Step 4, take the square root, and then add your number over. And again, you may have to do some work, you may not have to. It's kind of up, it depends on the problem. Okay. This one, same thing. Step 1, let's get rid of this 10. We're going to add 10 to both sides. So x squared minus 6x equals 10. Now we're going to complete the square. We're going to find out what number needs to go here for this. And so if I take half of 6, that's 3. 3 times 3 is 9. We're going to add 9 to both sides. So it's always half of the middle squared is what gets us to over here. All right, now we're going to factor that. Factors into x minus 3 times x minus 3, or x minus 3 squared. Square root that. So x minus 3 equals positive or negative square root of 19. Okay. Then we're going to add 3. Put that right in there. So x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 19. Again, that probably would be fine in some cases, but if we wanted to go a little bit further, we could take a calculator, go 3 plus square root of 19, which is 7.359, and 3 minus square root of 19, which is negative 1.359. Okay, so it depends on the context. You may want one, you may want the other. Okay. So again, the process, while there are a lot of, few steps to this, they're all the same steps. And so that's why some people really like this method, because it's the same thing every time. You get to number 3, all right, I get rid of this number first. K squared plus 4k equals 6. All right, now I'm going to add 4 to both, because half of 4 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. We're adding 4 to both sides. I get k squared plus 4k plus 4 equals 10. I factor that. 2 times 2, 2 plus 2, so this is k plus 2. All right, then I take the square root. I get k plus 2 equal to positive or negative square root of 10. And then I subtract 2. K equals negative 2 plus or minus square root of 10. So again, same steps. Get rid of this number, take half of the middle and square it, add that to both sides, factor this, square root both sides, get the variable by itself. If we have to go one step further, we will. Negative 10 plus square root of, negative 2 plus square root of 10 is 1.162. Negative 2 minus square root of 10 is negative 5.162. So k equals that or that. So either one of these, again, depending on the context, would be our answer. Okay. For this one here, same idea again. We're going to add 5. So x squared minus 2x equals 3. Half of 2 is 1. 1 times 1 is 1, so we're going to add 1 to both sides. This is going to then factor into x minus 1 times x minus 1. Take the square root. We get x minus 1 equal to positive or negative 2. Add that 1 over. X equals 1 plus or minus 2. So let's go ahead and do that. 1 plus 2 is 3, and 1 minus 2 is negative 1. So if the square root does work out nicely like it did in 1 and 4, then we'll just go ahead and do the last step for sure. If it doesn't work out nicely like in 2 and 3, then you have that option of either leaving it in the square root form or making it a decimal. Okay? 5 and 6 will give you something a little different. The steps are the same. We're going to subtract. So I get x squared plus 14x equals negative 49. But when I take half of the middle and square it, I get 49. When I add that to both sides, this goes to 0. Okay, now the steps are still going to be the same. We're going to factor this into x plus 7 times x plus 7. Then we're going to take the square root. But the problem is that when we take the square root now, square root of 0 is just 0. So when I subtract 7, I get just one answer here. So instead of having 2 answers like I did in these other cases here, this one only gives me 1 answer. All right, we'll see graphing-wise next week or the week after what that means. But for right now, you can understand there's some special cases where we get 1 answer. Or in something like number 6, you go and do this process. All right, we get x squared minus 10x equals negative 40. If I take half of this and square it, I get 25. I add that to both sides. What ends up happening here is I go through the process and I've got a negative on this side. Now that's never happened before, right? When we go to take the square root of that, we can't take the square root of a negative number. That's not a real number. And so in a case like that, as soon as that happens, we write no solution. So sometimes, most of the time, we're going to get 2 answers, like we did up here. Sometimes you might get 1 answer. Sometimes you might get none. It just kind of depends on the situation as you go. But the steps are all the same. We did the same thing on each and every one of those.